Hey there, dance studio owners. Welcome to a very special week inside of the Transform My Studio podcast. This week, I'm going to be joined every single day by some very real and very inspiring dance studio owners from all around the globe who I've had the absolute pleasure working with very closely inside of our Studio Success Formula Mastery program. Now, my guest today is the owner of La Petite Dance Center in Florida and has taken over the running of her business in recent years. Bethlyn Hernandez is also an incredible source of support and feedback in our really close community of studio owners. So I wanted to get her on because she's got great ideas. She's always cheering people on. And Bethlyn is just a delight to work with. Hey, Bethlyn, how are you? Thanks for joining us.
Hey, I'm doing great, Clint. Thank you. How are you?
Oh, I am good. I am good because I get to be talking to you today. So, Bethlyn, why don't you start by telling us just a little bit about your journey? How did you end up, becoming a studio owner? And tell us a little bit about your studio and what you do today.
Well, a friend of mine in high school and I decided that we wanted to open a studio one day. And about 8 years ago, she reapproached me and said, hey, let's do this. And I said, okay, let's do it. And we both quit our jobs and opened up our studios. And about a year and a half ago now, she and her mom had to pull out from the business. Mm-hmm. And I took over, and it's been a roller coaster, but it's been great.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow, that's really interesting. You're in a partnership, you're working together, and then it's just you. Tell me, what were some of the benefits? Because a lot of people always ask me around partnerships. Should I go into partnership? What are the pros? What are the cons? Can you share a little bit with us around that side of being in a partnership? And then how is it different now that it's 100% you?
Well, I'm sure my partnership is probably not the same as all the other partnerships out there, but one of the biggest things that people need to think about when they go into a partnership is discuss your ideas before you start. Because one really big thing that we had an issue with was one year I had one dancer come in for recital, and of course I tell them hair in a bun, stage makeup, and I explain what it is. She came in with face paint on, because they were dancing to Let It Go. And so her mom wanted her to be like Elsa and all this stuff. And I'm like, no, she needs to be like the other dancers. And then one of my partners was like, well, it doesn't matter. Don't worry about it. Just let her do it, because it's not like we're a professional company anyway. What? And that's when I realized that we really needed to have more open communication. And we really had not been talking about what we wanted for our future. We were just kind of living in the day and trying to keep going with it. Now that it's just me, I get to teach the classes the way I want to teach them. I'm not as stressed as I was when I wasn't handling all of the business stuff.
Yeah. And
it's becoming what I want it to be.
I love that. How have you, once you separated from that partnership and you're 100% in the business now, how did you come up with, your values and what you really stood for? Because I can imagine that's really a great opportunity. It's like a new chapter for you, right? It's like, okay, now I can really create 100% what I want to do. How did you get clarity around the direction that you wanted to take the studio?
Well, to be honest, I'm still working on developing the clarity. And from the sounds of it, I think it's something that I'll be developing and redeveloping until I'm not doing it anymore. Mm-hmm. But I've stopped and I've kind of watched my dancers over the last year and said, okay, what is it that I want for them? And when I auditioned for an arts program in high school, I was told by the program director I had no talent. I was being let in against her better judgment. But then her Russian friend came in and was like, well, everyone in class is dancing like dead cows except for you and the girl who was a senior in our freshman class. And I'm like, well, I don't want my students to go through that. I want them to be in a positive and encouraging environment, despite any struggles they might be going through. I've had students with autism spectrum disorder. I've had students who were born with short hamstrings. And it's just with every single one of them, I have decided, I want to give them their best chance at dance. If it's something they want to do, I want to help them with it. So I've gone through and I've researched, how to work with students on certain stretches to help, overcome some of their obstacles.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that, you just chatting about that, I know one thing that really stood out for me about you going through our programs and being in our community is that you really look after your customers. And this is something that that I'm super passionate about is not only from a retention and in increasing the lifetime value of a customer, but just to really give them a phenomenal experience inside of your business. What are some of the things that you do to really create those raving fans and give them that experience that they wouldn't be able to get anywhere else in your area?
I listen. And I pay attention. A lot of times their face says more than their words. Mm-hmm. So I kind of watch for their expressions, when we're talking about things. And even with the students, I really pay attention to what they're doing and focusing on in class. We do free dance for my younger kids. We do free dance at the end of class where they have self-expression, and I get to see what their favorite steps are so we can put that in our showcase dance. And the parents love it because the kids come out and they're just thrilled about dance class because they just had the most wonderful dance class and they got to do all this great stuff. Mm-hmm. And with some parents, we had a 3-year-old class that we did offering half an hour of ballet, and then they could do a half an hour of tap. And my friend was actually teaching that class until January. And then she had to pull out to continue with her regular full-time job. And I took over and I went, well, she never told me tap was not working with them. It was not keeping their attention for a half an hour. So I spoke to the parents and I was like, what do you think of the idea of doing tumbling instead? We can give it a try for a couple of weeks and get some feedback from the kids. What did they think? What do you think? And they absolutely loved it because I let them be part of the decision-making process, in a small aspect. Like I'd already made up my mind, this is going to work better. Yeah. But I'll get some feedback from them before we say, okay, you guys like it, I like it, the kids love it, let's go ahead and do it. So I really take their opinions into consideration. I had one parent who, because of his religious beliefs, did not want me to use the word magic in dance class at all. Mm-hmm. And, she's one of my younger ones, and we always use our magic sparkly listening dust to make sure our listening ears are working. And so I was like, okay. So it just became our sparkly listening dust. And our magic trick of being able to walk backwards without looking behind us just became our super special secret dancer trick. Just because of the word magic. Yeah. And they loved that I went above and beyond and, made sure to do something so she could still be involved. And it did not impose on their religious beliefs too.
Yeah, completely. I love this. So important, that listening piece, because so often, and one thing that I've noticed just from you speaking just then is you're really open to feedback. And I think so many studio owners are so afraid of feedback. And when they get some feedback, it's like, we get defensive and we straight away we're not actually listening. We're preparing our response in our mind without actually listening to them. And so I love how open and also how collaborative that you are with your customers, giving them the great example was the tap and the tumbling. Giving them the opportunity to really have a say in what's going on without them walking over you, right? Because I think that sometimes, and we see it inside of our programs, studio owners saying, I feel like the customer is running my business and I'm not anymore. So how do you kind of find that balance, I guess, of like being collaborative and asking for feedback, but not letting them dictate then everything that happens inside of the business?
Well, going back to the partnership, the customers ran our business until I took over because my partners were very easy to walk all over. And I was kind of in the background, not knowing what was going on. So that was one of the things I decided when I took over was I'm going to be in charge and I'm going to do this. I also have a master's degree in psychology, and I've learned that when somebody has too many choices, they're not happy. So you want to limit the number of choices that they have, and then they don't have to think about it and really worry about it because they've got 100,000 other things to worry about every day in life. They don't want to have to try to make the decisions for you at the studio as well. Because then they're going to try to just go, I have to do it all myself, so I'll just do this and I'll do that. And before you know it, they're running your studio, not you.
Oh, completely, 100%. I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk about some wins that you've had in the studio over the last, 12 to 6 months. I remember you joining us earlier in the year for Studio Success Formula Mastery, and you had some great results from that. So tell us, where are you at now? What are some big wins that you've had in the business?
Oh my gosh, I can take a day off and not feel bad about it. I received a couple of phone calls on my birthday. I was at Disney with my husband and my daughter for my birthday weekend. And I answered 2 phone calls on that Monday just because I was afraid that it might be a parent who didn't receive the email or didn't see the email that we sent out. And it was, and I apologized and was like, my husband took me away for my birthday and I'm up at Disney, so we don't have class tonight. Other than that, I didn't answer the phone. I didn't answer any emails. I didn't even check Facebook. I was off and I did not feel guilty. It was fabulous.
That's a big win, right? That's it because it's hard. I remember when I had my studio, it's hard to switch off. It's hard to go for even a day or 2 days without feeling like the business might not survive or it might crumble without you responding to every single person.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I was responding before I learned to take a day off. If I woke up in the middle of the night with my daughter, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, she'd want to get up and nurse. I'd get up and nurse her. I'd put her back to bed, and then I'd be checking my phone to see if any more emails came through that I needed to respond to before I went back to sleep for the night. So I was literally in business mode 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it's exhausting.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Completely exhausting. What else? What are some other things that you've achieved that you're really proud of inside of the business?
Well, I ask for referrals now. Like, I'm not afraid to ask for referrals anymore. And I've even given parents incentive, and I've even had parents be like, oh, well, I'm not worried about the incentive. I just want to bring customers in because, you're looking for more students. And I'm going, well, I'm always looking for more students. And I guess I didn't realize before that they didn't realize I was looking to bring in more students until I said, hey, make sure to refer us to your friends and bring your friends in because it's so much more fun when you're dancing with friends too.
Totally.
And, and I've opened classes for enrollment all year long.
Yes, good. That's one thing that we talk a lot about, right? So
yeah, it was a huge concept. And I don't know, before I took over, I don't know if we just turned students away or if we didn't have them asking about classes because that wasn't really my thing to handle. And since I've started this year-round enrollment, I've gotten students who they came in 2 to 3 weeks before our show. And I was like, I would love to have you come in, try the class out, see if you like it, if we're a good fit for you. And they'll sit there, they'll enroll those last couple of weeks of our regular season, and then they are ready to go through the summer. And they're just like, yeah, let's do this. And I've already got them pre-enrolling for the fall, which starts in like 3 weeks.
I love it. Yeah, look, the re-enrollment is so crucial because it then opens up the space for you to focus on new students. Right. So often when we're going into a new season, we're spending so much of our time on, are they coming back? Are they coming back? Are they coming back? Where we can have that handled right before we end our season. Let's get a re-enrollment process in. Let's get them locked in for the next season so we can open up our space in our head and our time, our calendar to be able to work on getting those new people in. So that's, I love that. That's so good. Bethlyn, I want to ask, you were one of our members in our Studio Success Formula Mastery program that was such a great implementer. How do you kind of face your week? Like, what does the planning look like for you, your week? How do you get kind of so much done? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Oh my gosh. Honestly, I always feel like I'm not getting anything done because
I think we all, I think we all feel like anyone that is achieving always feels like that. Someone said to me the other day, oh my God, how do you get everything done? And I was like, I still feel behind the 8 ball most days, because there's so much we want to do. Right. That's driving us forward. But we know that you get stuff done. So how do you prepare for that?
Well, I'm probably one of the oddballs. Like, I'll make a huge to-do list and I'll be like, okay, I got to get this one done first, this one done first, this one done first. And my to-do list is never just the studio, because I'm also a wife and a mother, and I
Mm.
have to make sure those take priority in my life. So it's okay. Well, can I send my daughter away for a little bit so I can do some work? Yes, great. I have an hour that I just sit down and it's like, okay, I got to get this done. Nothing else in the world exists. Just getting the work done.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't, I have to rearrange things. So I'm like, okay, I will spend the whole day thinking, I've got to do this, I've got to do this, and I've got to do that. My daughter goes to sleep about 9:30. I will work from about 9:45 until 11 o'clock or so, 11:30, and just push these things out and get them done. And I just make sure that I keep going back over my to-do list. Otherwise, I have mommy brain and I forget everything.
Yeah, and distractions come up as well, but just having that list and being really intentional about, okay, this is, I've got X amount of hours and this is what I'm getting done tonight.
Yeah. And it's always more interesting because my husband owns his own small business as well. And so I have to help him out with a lot of stuff. Between the two of us, I'm the more tech savvy one,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of sad to say. But so a lot of times I'll be helping him out with stuff. Like a couple nights ago, we were both up until midnight working on our businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes you just got to fit it in whenever you can.
Yeah, and that's the life. That's the life of a small business owner. And like you said, you get to take time off now, which is great. But there are seasons where you are working, into the night to get stuff done.
Oh,
And that's part of running a dance studio. Bethlyn, what are your last words of wisdom or advice that you would give our studio owners that are listening, and maybe they're feeling a little lost or a little overwhelmed, and they want some direction, but they're not kind of sure where to go or to start. What would you say to them? What's the best way for them to get some clarity around where they want to go with their studio?
I would tell them the same thing I tell my dancers when I see that they're getting overwhelmed. Breathe, take a step back, and don't be afraid to ask questions. If you don't ask questions, you won't get answers. And believe me, sometimes you don't want the answers that are in your own head. You want to pick somebody else's brain to get help, because other people, are around because they have the experience or they've been through a similar situation, and they can offer advice as to what worked and what didn't work, or what's another way of approaching it that might work better.
Yeah, such good advice. And that's why I think I'm so in love with our community of studio owners, is because it's a great place to go, right? To just get feedback and to be around people that know exactly, they've been through it before. And they can give advice and feedback, and it's so important because if we look at every successful business owner that's ever been around, from Oprah to the late Steve Jobs to Richard Branson, they all say, like, I didn't do this on my own. Like, there was mentors, there was therapists, there was friends, there was colleagues, there's a lot of people that actually make a business what it is. And I think you're so spot on with, like, don't be afraid to reach out for help. When you don't have the answer to something, because someone is going to be able to give you a really great answer that you're going to be able to implement into the business and really fast track the decision-making process, but also the progress of growing the business.
Yeah. And in addition to that, don't be afraid of getting help, because that was what held me back. Actually, almost exactly a year ago, I was afraid to ask for help because I was afraid it would make me look weak. And I'm a very competitive person. And I think most competition dancers are probably the same way. You're very competitive and you don't want to ask for help because you're like, no, I can do this. I've done all these other things.
Yeah.
And you actually had 2 free programs that I signed up for before I did the Studio Success Formula Mastery. And the first one, I was gung-ho. That first day or 2, I was like, I've got this. And then I fell off for the rest of the week. It was a week-long thing and I couldn't even stick with it. And I was so mad at myself. And so when January Jumpstart came around, I was like, okay, I've gone through this half of the year and I'm not seeing any progress. I've got to do something. I've got to get help. So I did the January Jumpstart and I saw a difference, and I was like, oh my gosh, having other people like who know what they're doing and who can guide me has just been phenomenal. And so that's why I jumped in, like with the DSOA. I was like, I've got to do this because I know there are other people who have the experience that I want to be able to one day say, I've got that experience. Let me help you now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And that's great advice for everyone that's listening. Even for the husbands that have their own small business as well. Let them listen to this episode with Bethlyn. Bethlyn, thank you so much for your time today. Where can our listeners go to find out more about you and your studio?
Oh, well, you can find out all kinds of information about us at lapetitecenter.com. And I know it's spelled the French way, so it's LAPETITECENTRE.com.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, Bethlyn, always a pleasure. I love having you in our community of studio owners, and I can't wait to see what the next 12 months, 12 years brings. It's going to be so awesome to watch the continuation of your journey. So thanks for sharing today.
Thank you. And I'm really excited to see what the next 12 months bring as well.
Yeah, exciting.